At 7:42 on a Friday night, I was sitting alone at a corner table for two, pretending not to notice the waiter removing the second menu. That is a special kind of humiliation, by the way. Not dramatic enough for anyone to gasp. Not obvious enough for strangers to pity you openly. Just quiet enough that every time the front door opened, your spine straightened like a hopeful idiot. I had already checked my phone 6 times. No message, no missed call, no, sorry, running late, just my own reflection in the dark glass beside the booth, looking like a man who had put on his good Navy shirt for absolutely no reason. My name is Graham Porter. I was 33, a structural engineer in Columbus, Ohio, and most of my romantic life could be summed up as reliable man seeks woman who does not find reliability boring. My younger sister Beth had set up the date. She's smart, Beth had said. I said, that's not a personality. She's funny. That's better. She has kind eyes. That sounds like something you say about a rescue dog. Beth threw a dish towel at me and said, just go, Graham. Her name is Audrey. Don't overthink it. Overthinking, unfortunately, was one of my core skills. I did it professionally with load-bearing walls and personally with women who smiled at me too long. So there I was at Marcelli's, a cozy Italian place with amber lights, brick walls, and couples leaning across tables like the world had politely stepped outside for them. I had arrived 12 minutes early because I was raised by a mother who believed lateness was a small moral failure. I ordered sparkling water because ordering wine alone felt like surrender. Then I watched 7 couples get seated, 3 birthdays get sung to, and one man propose near the bar while I considered faking an emergency involving my non-existent dog. At 7:45, I stood. Not dramatically. No napkin thrown down. No wounded speech to the room. Just a quiet, adult retreat. I slipped my phone into my pocket, reached for my jacket, and told myself the old familiar thing. Don't make it mean anything. Because I had made things mean too much before. My last serious girlfriend, Hannah, had once told me I was good on paper. She said it kindly, which somehow made it worse. Good job. Good manners. Good credit. Good at remembering oil changes and dentist appointments. Good on paper. Not enough in person. I had spent 2 years since then trying not to become bitter. Mostly I had succeeded. Some nights, though, sitting across from an empty chair, a man starts wondering if maybe women could sense the invisible label before they even walked in. Safe. Steady, forgettable. I was halfway out of the booth when the restaurant door opened hard enough to pull in a gust of cold March air. A woman stepped inside holding a little girl's hand. And somehow, before I knew her name, before she looked around the room, before anything made sense, I knew. It was her. Audrey. She was shorter than I expected, maybe 5'4", with dark blonde hair tucked messily behind one ear and cheeks pink from the cold. She wore a green wrap dress under a tan coat like she had dressed for a date, and then survived a small household emergency on the way there. The little girl beside her had curly brown hair, purple glasses, and a solemn expression that suggested she was not impressed with fine dining. Audrey scanned the room once, fast and nervous. Then her eyes found mine. I don't know what I expected. An apology face, maybe? Panic, embarrassment? Instead, she gave me a small, brave smile that hit me with more force than it should have. Not because she was beautiful, though she was, because she looked like someone standing at the edge of a bridge she had been told not to cross, crossing anyway. I let go of my jacket. She walked toward me with her daughter's hand in hers. I'm Graham, I said, and immediately wanted to walk into traffic. Sorry, that came out like a question. I am Graham. Her smile widened. I'm Audrey Klein, she said, and this is Willa. Willa looked me up and down. You're taller than the picture. I glanced at Audrey. There was a picture? Audrey closed her eyes for 1 second. Beth sent one? Of me? Yes. Recent? Depends how emotionally attached you are to your hairline. That surprised a laugh out of me. Willa tugged on Audrey's hand and whispered, with the volume control of a courtroom bailiff. He laughed. That's good. Audrey's face turned a deeper shade of pink. I am so sorry, she said quickly. My babysitter canceled 10 minutes before I was supposed to leave. My backup was at urgent care with her son, and I tried to call Beth, but she didn't answer. I should have messaged you, but then Willa spilled orange juice on my phone, and it's currently doing that thing where it pretends to be dead, so I'll appreciate it more when it comes back. That's manipulative of it, I said. Very. We stood there in the narrow space beside the table. I could feel people glancing over. Not rudely exactly, but with that little flicker of interest adults get when a date becomes a scene. Audrey noticed too. Her shoulders tightened. I understand if this is too much, she said. Honestly, I can just… No, I said. It came out faster than I intended. Her eyes lifted to mine. I softened my voice. I mean, no, don't go. You're here. Willa raised one finger. I'm also here. You are, I said. And frankly, you're the only one so far who's given me a clear review of my height. She considered that. 4 stars. Out of 5? Out of 10. I don't know you yet. Audrey pressed her lips together, fighting a smile. And that did something dangerous to me. Something warm and immediate. I had expected awkwardness. Instead, there was this strange, bright charge between us. Half nerves and half humor, like we had both been handed a script and chosen to ignore it. The waiter returned, holding the second menu like it had personally offended him. Will there be 3 tonight? I looked at Audrey, not at Willa, at Audrey, because it mattered that she knew I wasn't just being polite to the child. I wasn't rescuing a mother from embarrassment. I was choosing to continue the date. If Audrey still wants to have dinner with me, I said, then yes. 3. For half a second, her face changed. The relief was there, sure, but under it was something else. Surprise, curiosity, a little caution. The look of a woman who had learned not to trust kindness too quickly. I do, she said quietly. Then, as if embarrassed by her own honesty, she added, but if you order the calamari, Willa may judge you. Willa nodded. Squid is a haunted noodle. I laughed again and pulled out the chair across from me. Audrey moved to sit, but Willa climbed into the chair first. Actually, Willa said, I need to sit by the wall because of suspicious people. Audrey sighed. She means waiters. They appear suddenly, Willa said. So Audrey slid into the booth beside her daughter, and I sat across from them. It was not the date I had pictured. It was better. Messier, yes, louder, stranger. There were crayons delivered with the breadbasket, and Willa immediately began drawing what she described as a horse with tax problems. Audrey kept apologizing every time her daughter interrupted, and every time I liked her more. Not because she was flawless, because she wasn't pretending to be. She asked me about my work, and when I told her I designed bridges and commercial buildings, she leaned her chin into her hand and said, So, if a building falls down, you're one of the people everyone blames? Only if I did my job poorly. And do you? Almost never. Confidence, she said. Dangerous. Accuracy. Worse. Her eyes held mine for a second too long, and the noise of the restaurant seemed to tuck itself behind us. I noticed the small gold fleck near her left iris. I noticed the way she tapped her thumb against her water glass when she was thinking. I noticed that she looked at me directly, like she was tired of men who made her feel like an inconvenience. Then Willa dropped a crayon. Audrey and I both reached for it at the same time. Our hands touched under the table. It was nothing. Barely skin against skin. But she froze. So did I. When we came back up, the crayon in my hand, neither of us spoke for a heartbeat. Willa looked between us, then she said, Mommy, your face is doing the thing. Audrey took the crayon from me without looking away. What thing? I asked, because apparently I had no survival instinct. Audrey gave me a warning smile. Graham. Willa leaned forward and whispered, the face she made in the car when she said she hoped you were nice, Audrey. Covered her eyes with one hand. I should have let her off the hook. A better man might have. But I smiled and said, for the record, I was hoping the same thing. Audrey lowered her hand. The banter faded. Something softer stepped in. You were? She asked. Yeah, I said. I was. For the first time that night, she looked like she believed I had been waiting for her, not just for a date-shaped person to fill the chair. Dinner arrived. Willa got buttered noodles. Audrey got chicken piccata. I ordered the salmon because Willa had already warned me about haunted noodles, and I was trying to stay on her good side. For 20 minutes, the night became almost easy. Audrey told me she taught third grade and had once confiscated a love note that simply said, "You smell like markers, but in a good way." I told her about the time I miscalculated a site visit and got trapped in a freight elevator with a wedding cake. Willa asked if adults were allowed to get married to people they met on accident. Audrey choked on her water, and I said, "Usually there's paperwork first." Willa nodded seriously. "Good, my mom likes paperwork." Audrey nudged her daughter gently. "I like organization. You have a drawer full of batteries and no batteries that work." "That drawer is in transition." I was smiling so much my face hurt. Then Audrey's dead phone came back to life. It buzzed once on the table. Then again. Then again. Audrey glanced down and all the color left her face. The screen lit up with a name. Derek. 3 missed calls, 1 text. I didn't mean to read it. It was just there between the bread plate and her water glass, bright as a flare. "You brought Willa with you? On a date?" Audrey snatched the phone off the table, but not before the next message appeared. "We need to talk, now." Willa stopped coloring. Audrey's smile vanished so completely it felt like someone had blown out a candle. I leaned forward, keeping my voice low. "Audrey," I said, "is everything okay?" She looked at me then, and the brave woman from the doorway was still there. But now I could see what it cost her. She swallowed. "I need to tell you something," she said, "before you decide whether you still want to be sitting at this table. There are moments in life when a man can feel 2 versions of himself arguing. One version of me wanted to say something noble and immediate, like, 'Whatever it is, it doesn't matter.' The other version, the one with a mortgage, a cautious heart, and a history of women choosing someone else, knew that was a lie. Of course it mattered. But Audrey looked across the table at me with her phone clenched in her hand and her daughter pretending very hard not to listen. And I realized the question wasn't whether it mattered. The question was whether she deserved room to speak before I decided what kind of man I was going to be. So I set my fork down. "I'm listening," I said. Audrey exhaled shakily. "Derek is Willa's father." Willa drew one aggressive purple line across her horse's tax documents. Audrey noticed and lowered her voice. "He and I have been divorced almost 3 years. It wasn't dramatic at first, just exhausting. We got married too young, and then we became parents before we became good partners." "That happens," I said. Her eyes flicked to mine, grateful and guarded. "He has Willa every other weekend. This was supposed to be my weekend, but he asked to switch because of a work thing. Then he changed his mind this morning. Then my sitter canceled tonight, and I thought—" She gave a small, embarrassed laugh. "I thought I could still have one normal adult evening." "You can," I said. She looked at me like I had offered her something impossible. "I should have told you before I came." "Maybe," I said. But Beth also neglected to tell me her funny friend with kind eyes had a child who gives brutally honest height reviews. Willa looked up. "It was constructive." "Exactly." Audrey's mouth twitched, but the worry didn't leave her face. "Derek doesn't like surprises," she said. I glanced at the phone. "He tracks your location?" "No, Willa has a kid watch, for safety. He can see where she is when she's wearing it." Willa lifted her wrist slowly as if it had betrayed the family. "I forgot," Audrey murmured. Her phone buzzed again. She turned it face down without reading it. That small act, more than anything, told me who she was trying to become. Not fearless, just tired of being ruled. "I don't want to drag you into something," she said. "You were expecting a blind date, not—" She gestured helplessly at the table. "This." I looked at Willa, who was now giving her horse a briefcase. Then I looked back at Audrey. "I was expecting dinner with a woman named Audrey," I said. "So far, that's my favorite part of the night." Her face softened. It happened slowly, like a flower opening in cautious sunlight. "Your favorite part?" she asked. "The top 3 are you walking in, You insulting my hairline by implication? And learning squid is a haunted noodle. I did not insult your hairline. I questioned your emotional attachment to it. Which is worse, more nuanced. Willa sighed. Are you two flirting? Audrey went red. I leaned back. I believe your mother is cross-examining me. With her face? Willa, Audrey warned, but she was smiling now. And there it was again, that bright current between us. The restaurant noise, the unanswered messages, the complications all dimmed for a second. It was just Audrey looking at me like maybe she had forgotten she was allowed to be wanted. Not managed, not judged, wanted. The waiter came by and asked about dessert. Audrey immediately said, "No, thank you." At the same time, Willa and I said, "Yes." Audrey stared at me. You're siding with the child? I'm siding with tiramisu. Traitor. Dessert is a neutral territory. Willa nodded gravely. He understands diplomacy. So we ordered one tiramisu and 3 spoons. It became somehow our first real date moment. Not the table, not the introductions, not even the accidental hand touch under the table. It was the dessert. Audrey took a careful bite, closed her eyes for half a second, and made the tiniest sound of pleasure. I should not have noticed. I noticed. When she opened her eyes, she caught me noticing. Neither of us looked away. That good? I asked, my voice lower than before. Her smile turned private. Better than good. I felt that smile somewhere behind my ribs. Willa shoved her spoon between us. Less staring, more sharing. Audrey laughed, and the sound loosened something in me I hadn't known was tight. A few minutes later, Willa announced she had to use the restroom with urgency but not drama, and Audrey rose to take her. Before she did, she paused beside my chair. Don't leave, she said. It was meant as a joke. Mostly. I looked up at her. She was close enough that I could see a tiny smear of powdered sugar on her lower lip. I won't, I said. Her gaze dropped to my mouth for one impossible second. Then Willa tugged her hand and the moment broke. While they were gone, Audrey's phone buzzed again. I did not touch it. I didn't even look at the screen after the first flash. But I did sit there with my hands folded, quietly furious at a man who could turn a woman's first laugh in weeks into a thing she felt guilty for having. When Audrey returned, Willa skipped ahead to the booth. Audrey moved more slowly. He's outside, she said under her breath. My whole body went still. Derek? She nodded. He says he just wants to talk. I glanced toward the front windows. Through the reflection of candlelight, I could make out a man standing near the curb in a dark coat, phone in hand. I wanted to stand up. I wanted to be 6 inches taller than I was and make some primitive claim about leaving her alone. But Audrey was watching me and I understood something important. If I made this about protecting her, Derek would still be the center of the night. I didn't want him to have that. What do you want to do? I asked. She blinked. Not, what did he say? Not, do you need me to handle it? What do you want? Her lips parted slightly. I want to finish my dessert, she said. So I picked up my spoon. Then I'd suggest we guard it. Willa is circling. Willa, already seated, froze with a spoonful halfway to her mouth. False accusation. Audrey laughed once, startled and real. She sat down again. And for the next 10 minutes, we ate tiramisu while her ex-husband waited outside. It was ridiculous. It was defiant. It was maybe the most romantic thing I had ever done because it wasn't grand. It was simply choosing the woman in front of me over the drama, trying to pull her away. When the plate was empty, Audrey set down her spoon. I need to speak to him, she said. Briefly. Okay. But I don't want the date to end like this. She looked almost angry with herself for admitting it. I know that sounds foolish. It doesn't. It does. I showed up late with my daughter, my ex is outside, and you probably have friends with normal lives you could be texting right now. My friends are not that impressive. Graham. I smiled, but her seriousness pulled honesty out of me. I don't want it to end either, I said. The words landed between us like a hand extended. Audrey's eyes shone a little. Then, slowly, under the table, she reached across the space between our knees. Her fingers brushed mine. This time, it wasn't an accident. I turned my hand palm up. She slid her fingers into mine. It lasted only a few seconds. Willa was busy putting crayons back into the box in rainbow order, and the waiter was somewhere near the kitchen. No one saw, but I felt it everywhere. Audrey squeezed once, then let go. "All right," she whispered. "I'll be right back." "I'll be here." She stood, then hesitated. "If Willa asks you complicated questions, you're allowed to lie." Willa looked up. "I heard that." Audrey bent and kissed her daughter's hair. "I know." Then she walked toward the front door. I watched her go, not because she needed me to, but because I couldn't help it. Willa slid into the seat across from me, suddenly solemn. "My dad gets mad when Mom is happy," she said. My chest tightened. I chose my words carefully. "Your mom is allowed to be happy." Willa studied me. "Are you going to make her sad?" The question hit harder than anything Derek could have said. "I hope not," I told her. "But if I ever do, I hope I'm brave enough to say sorry." She considered that answer. Outside, Audrey stood facing Derek beneath the restaurant awning. He was talking with sharp hands. She was standing still, arms crossed over her coat, her chin lifted. Then Derek looked past her, straight at me. A second later, Audrey turned too. Our eyes met through the glass. And instead of looking embarrassed, instead of looking away, she gave me the smallest smile. A choice. I smiled back. Derek saw it. His face changed. Then Audrey said something to him, turned around, and came back inside. She didn't hurry, she didn't shrink. She walked right to our table, picked up her coat, and looked at me. "Would you like to walk us to the car?" she asked. I stood. "I'd like that very much." The cold hit us as soon as we stepped outside. Willa made a sound of personal betrayal and pulled her hood over her curls. Audrey buttoned her coat with one hand, her other hand hovering near Willa's shoulder as if she was reminding herself not to grab too tightly. Derek stood by the curb, tall and broad-shouldered, with the practiced impatience of a man who thought the world should speed up when he frowned. "Audrey," he said. She stopped, but she didn't move toward him. "We already talked." "We didn't finish." "Yes," she said. "We did." His gaze cut to me. I had been stared down by building inspectors, angry contractors, and one city councilman who believed gravity was a negotiable expense. Derek had a different kind of stare, personal, measuring, like he was deciding what category to put me in. Threat, idiot, temporary. I kept my hands visible and my voice even. "Evening." He ignored me. "Willa, come here." Willa's mittened hand tightened around Audrey's. Audrey's voice stayed calm. "She's going home with me tonight, like we agreed." "I didn't agree to you taking her on dates with strangers." Audrey flinched. Just a little. I hated that I noticed. Then she did something that made me like her even more. She straightened. "Graham isn't a stranger anymore," she said. "And this conversation isn't happening in front of her." Derek's jaw moved. For a second, I thought he might push it. Instead, he gave a short laugh with no humor in it. "Fine. We'll talk tomorrow." "Email me," Audrey said. "Don't be like that." "I'm being exactly like that." Willa whispered. "Mommy is using her teacher voice." I looked down. "It's very effective. It works on boys named Braden." I believe it. Audrey's mouth twitched despite herself. Derek saw that too. His eyes narrowed, and I braced for another jab, another attempt to hook her attention. But Audrey had already turned away. "Good night, Derek." We walked to her car without speaking, not because there was nothing to say, because the air was full of everything. Her car was an older blue Subaru parked half a block down. Willa climbed into the back seat, then immediately began negotiating for a song called "The Dragon One," which Audrey claimed not to know and Willa claimed was a lie. I stood beside the open driver's door while Audrey buckled her daughter in. The dome light made a halo of her hair. Her hands shook once on the seatbelt so quickly I might have missed it if I hadn't been watching. When she shut the back door, we were suddenly alone on the sidewalk. Not truly alone. Willa was 2 feet away behind glass, fogging the window with her breath and drawing a face in it, but alone enough. Audrey turned to me. I'm sorry. That's your second most used phrase tonight. What's the first? Willa, please don't. She laughed, and the relief of hearing it again made me foolishly happy. I had this fantasy, she said, leaning back against the car. Not a big one, just dinner, adult conversation, maybe dessert if things went well. We had dessert. We did. And adult conversation. Some. And a horse with tax problems. A highlight. Her smile faded into something softer. I didn't want you to see that part of my life first. I stepped a little closer, slowly enough that she could step away if she wanted. She didn't. What part did you want me to see? I asked. Audrey looked at me for a long moment. The streetlight caught the gold in her eyes. The part that still gets excited before a date, she said quietly. The part that tried on 3 dresses and called your sister twice to ask if you seemed kind or just polite. The part that almost turned around in the parking lot because I had Willa with me, and I thought, there it is. Proof I'm too much before he even meets me. My chest tightened. You're not too much. You don't know that yet. No, I admitted, but I'd like to find out properly. Her breath caught. Behind her, Willa knocked on the window and held up 6 fingers. Audrey glanced back. That either means 6 minutes or she's rating this conversation. Out of 10? Let's not ask. I smiled, then grew serious. Can I say something that might sound too honest for a first date? That depends. Are you about to confess to tax fraud? No. Then yes. I slipped my hands into my coat pockets to keep from reaching for her too soon. I thought you stood me up, I said. For about 20 minutes, I sat in there deciding I was forgettable. Her expression changed. Graham, I'm not telling you so you'll reassure me. I'm going to anyway. That made me smile. She pushed off the car, closing the small distance between us. You are not forgettable. The words were simple. Her voice wasn't. It had weight in it. Want. I looked down at her, and all the noise from Derek, the cold, the passing cars seemed to drift to the far edge of the night. No? No. Her gaze dropped to my mouth again, then returned to my eyes. Annoyingly memorable, actually. Annoyingly? You ordered tiramisu against my better judgment. You enjoyed it. I did not say I was rational. We were close now, close enough that her coat brushed mine, close enough that I could smell citrus in her hair and the faint sweetness of restaurant coffee. I lifted one hand slowly and tucked a loose strand of hair away from her cheek. Audrey went still, not scared, aware. Is this okay? I asked. Her answer was barely above a whisper. Yes. My fingers lingered for 1 second near her cheek, not quite touching skin, and then I let my hand fall. It wasn't a kiss, but it felt like a promise we were both careful enough not to spend too quickly. Audrey looked almost disappointed, which was the best thing that had happened to my ego in years. You're very restrained, she said. I'm trying to be a gentleman. Dangerous. Accuracy, I said. She laughed softly, recognizing her own word turned back on her. Then she reached out and touched the sleeve of my coat just above my wrist, a small contact. Deliberate. I want to see you again, she said. There are sentences a man hears with his whole body. That was one of them. I want that too. Even after tonight? Especially after tonight. Her fingers tightened briefly on my sleeve. Saturday morning, she said. There's a park near my house. Willa has soccer at 10, but after that there's a coffee cart. It would be chaos, not a proper date. I'm beginning to prefer your chaos. Her smile warmed in a way that made me want to earn it again and again. Careful, Graham Porter. With what? Sounding like someone I might start looking forward to. I should have said something charming. Instead, I told the truth. I hope you do. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then the back window rolled down halfway. Mom, Willa called. If you kiss him, I'm telling Aunt Junie. Audrey closed her eyes. There is no Aunt Junie. Willa shrugged. I'll find one. I laughed so hard I had to look away. Audrey covered her face with both hands. This is my life. I like your life. She lowered her hands. The words seemed to land deeper than I expected, maybe deeper than I meant, but I didn't take them back. Audrey looked at me like she was memorizing something, then she opened the driver's door. Text me when you get home. I don't have your number. Oh. She patted her pockets, then remembered her phone was in her purse. Right. Modern romance requires devices. And charged ones. Cruel. She took out her phone, ignored the waiting messages, and handed it to me with the contact screen open. I typed in my number and saved it as Graham, not forgettable. When she saw it, her smile turned helpless. Your trouble, she said. I've been called reliable. Not by me. That pleased me more than it should have. I handed back the phone. Our fingers brushed, and this time neither of us pretended it was accidental. She climbed into the car, started the engine, and rolled down the window. Good night, Graham. Good night, Audrey. Willa leaned forward from the back. Good night, 4 stars. I'm working my way up. We'll see. They pulled away from the curb. I stood there until her taillights disappeared around the corner. My phone buzzed before I reached my car. Unknown number. I opened it. Audrey, for the record, if my daughter hadn't threatened to invent an aunt, I might have kissed you. I stopped dead on the sidewalk. Then another message appeared. Audrey, don't get smug. I typed back with cold fingers and a ridiculous smile. Me, too late. Her reply came a few seconds later. Audrey, Saturday then? Me, Saturday. Audrey, and Graham? Me, yes? Audrey, I'm glad you didn't leave. I looked up at the dark street, at the restaurant lights glowing behind me, at the ordinary city moving on like my life hadn't just shifted. Me. So am I. I was still smiling when another message arrived, but it wasn't from Audrey, it was from my sister. Beth. So, how did it go? I considered telling her the truth, that my blind date had arrived late with her daughter, her ex-husband had appeared outside, dessert had become an act of rebellion, and I was already counting the hours until Saturday. Instead, I typed, me. You failed to mention the best parts. Beth responded instantly. Beth, I knew you'd like her. I glanced at Audrey's contact on my screen. Graham, not forgettable. For the first time in a long time, I believed someone might actually mean it. Saturday morning, I arrived at the park with 2 coffees, 1 hot chocolate, and the confidence of a man who had spent 20 minutes staring at a menu board like it contained state secrets. Audrey was on the soccer field, standing with the other parents, while Willa chased the ball in the wrong direction with complete conviction. Audrey wore jeans, white sneakers, and a soft blue sweater under her coat. Her hair was up in a ponytail, and the sight of her smiling into the wind did something embarrassing to my pulse. She saw me before I reached her. That mattered, not because she waved, though she did, because her face changed. It opened, like I was not an obligation arriving, not another complication, but someone she had been hoping to see. Graham, not forgettable, she said when I stopped beside her. Audrey, phone murderer. She accepted the coffee with both hands. It was 1 orange. Juice incident. Your phone may disagree. My phone and I are in counseling. I handed her the hot chocolate. For Willa, unless she's still evaluating me and considers gifts bribery. Audrey looked down at the cup, then back at me. That's thoughtful. It's Swiss Miss from a park cart. Let's not canonize me yet. Her laugh curled through the cold air. On the field, Willa spotted me and immediately abandoned both strategy and team loyalty. 4 stars, she shouted, waving. A cluster of parents turned. Audrey winced. Congratulations, that's your name now. I've been called worse by contractors. Willa's coach redirected her with heroic patience, and Audrey and I moved a little away from the sideline near a bare maple tree, close enough to watch, far enough to talk. For a few minutes, we did exactly that. We talked about nothing important: coffee temperatures, childhood sports injuries, the universal horror of school fundraisers. Audrey told me she had once sold 92 tubs of cookie dough because Willa wanted a glow-in-the-dark pencil case. I told her I had played one season of middle school basketball and scored 2 points for the wrong team. That explains so much, she said. About my character? About your height rating? I put a hand over my heart. Cruel before noon. I'm nicer after lunch. I'll remember that. The banter was easy, but underneath it was something less practiced. Every time our shoulders brushed, she noticed. Every time she smiled at me and looked away, I felt like I'd been handed a secret. Near the end of the game, my phone buzzed. I ignored it. Audrey noticed. You can check that. I can also not check it. What if it's urgent? Unless a bridge is texting me, it can wait. Her expression softened in that way I was starting to crave. After the game, Willa accepted the hot chocolate with suspicion, took one sip and said, 5 stars. Out of 10? I asked. Out of 5, don't get weird. Audrey covered her smile with her coffee cup. We walked to the playground after, Willa racing ahead to the swings. Audrey and I followed slowly along the paved path. The morning had warmed just enough for the frost to melt off the grass. I got an email from Derek last night, she said quietly. There it was, the shadow at the edge of sunlight. I waited. He apologized, she said, sort of, then asked if we could reset expectations, which means he wants to decide what my life is allowed to look like when Willa's with me. What did you say? I haven't answered yet. Her hand tightened around her coffee. Part of me wants to write 3 paragraphs with bullet points and legal citations. And the other part? Wants to say no thank you and then take a nap. That second part sounds wise. It also sounds terrifying. We stopped near a bench. Willa was pumping her legs on the swings, shouting something about being a rocket accountant. Audrey stared at her daughter for a moment. I used to think peace meant keeping him calm. I'm trying to learn that peace can mean letting him be upset and not handing him my whole day. I looked at her then, really looked. Not at the pretty woman in the blue sweater, not at the mother managing schedules and snacks and emotional weather, at Audrey, the woman fighting to reclaim quiet pieces of herself. I like that part of you, I said. She turned. Which part? The part that's learning? Her eyes grew shiny, but she smiled. That's a dangerous thing to say to a teacher. I stand by it. For a second, I thought she might make a joke. Instead, she stepped closer. I'm scared, she admitted. Not of Derek hurting me, not like that. I'm scared that dating will make me feel foolish. That I'll want too much too quickly because I've been lonely longer than I like admitting. Her honesty knocked the air out of me. I'm scared too, I said. You? Me? Of what? That I'll be convenient, nice, stable. The man people appreciate but don't ache for. Audrey's gaze moved over my face, slow and tender. Then she set her coffee on the bench and reached for my hand. Right there in the park, with kids shrieking and a dog barking and Willa attempting to touch the sky, Audrey threaded her fingers through mine. I don't think convenient is the word for what I feel when you look at me, she said. My heart forgot its job for a second. What is it? Her cheeks pinked. Don't make me do vocabulary before lunch. You're a teacher. I teach 3rd grade. We have word banks. I smiled, but I didn't let her hand go. She looked at our joined hands and took a breath, like she was choosing courage on purpose. Hopeful, she said. Nervous, curious. Her thumb brushed mine. A little reckless. That last one sounds promising. It sounds inconvenient. Good. She laughed softly, and then the laughter faded. We were close now. Not almost close. Close. Graham? She whispered. I bent my head. Yes? If you're still being a gentleman, I'm going to start taking it personally. That was the only invitation I needed. I kissed her. Gently at first, because the first kiss with a woman like Audrey felt like something that deserved care. Her lips were cool from the morning air and soft beneath mine. She inhaled, surprised, then leaned in. Not a lot. Enough. enough that her free hand came to rest against my chest, enough that I felt the tremor in her fingers and knew it matched something in me. When I drew back, her eyes stayed closed for half a second. Then she opened them and smiled. "Oh," she said. I laughed under my breath. "Good, oh. Very inconvenient, oh." From the swings came a long, scandalized gasp. We turned. Willa was staring at us, one hand clamped over her mouth, eyes enormous with delight. "I'm telling Aunt Junie," Audrey groaned and dropped her forehead briefly against my shoulder. I froze, then carefully, wonderfully rested my chin near her hair. "You really need to meet this woman," I said. Audrey laughed into my coat. It was the best sound in the park. We spent another hour together. Willa showed me how to properly launch a swing without adult fear. Audrey and I shared a cinnamon pretzel from the coffee cart, arguing over who got the sugariest piece. At one point, a smear of cinnamon stuck to the corner of her mouth, and because I had kissed her once and apparently become a bolder man, I wiped it away with my thumb. She caught my wrist before I could pull back. Her eyes met mine. "Careful," she said. "With what?" "Making me like you in public." I lowered my voice. Should I save it for private?" Her blush answered before her words did. "Maybe." By noon, Willa was muddy. Audrey was relaxed in a way I hadn't seen yet, and I was dangerously close to imagining future Saturdays. Then Audrey's phone chimed. She glanced at it, and her smile faltered. I did not ask immediately. I waited until she looked up. "It's Derek," she said. "He wants to meet tomorrow. Says if I'm going to bring new men around Willa, we need a formal discussion." Her shoulders drew in. The old reflex. Then she looked at me, and I saw her fight it. "I'm going to tell him no," she said. "Not no to talking about Willa. No to making it an ambush. I'll suggest email. Or mediation if he wants formal." Pride rose in me, sharp and warm. "That sounds like you." She smiled faintly. "The learning part?" "My favorite part." Willa came running up then, breathless. "Can Graham come to lunch?" Audrey blinked. I looked at her, giving her the choice. She looked at me for one long second, then slipped her hand into mine again. "Yes," she said, "if he wants to." I squeezed her hand. "I want to." Audrey's smile returned, brighter this time, chosen in spite of the message waiting on her phone. And as we walked toward the parking lot, Willa skipping ahead, Audrey's fingers warm in mine, I understood something that scared me more than Derek ever could. I wasn't just hoping for another date anymore. I was hoping for a place in her life. Lunch that Saturday was grilled cheese at a place with paper boats instead of plates, because Willa insisted fancy restaurants were too stressful for noodles and feelings. Audrey sat across from me, her knee occasionally bumping mine beneath the table. The first time, she apologized. The second time, she didn't. The third time, she looked right at me and smiled. I learned that day that a woman could flirt while cutting a child's sandwich into triangles. I also learned that Audrey had a dimple in her left cheek that appeared only when she was trying not to laugh. Willa dipped her grilled cheese into ketchup, which I tried not to visibly react to. Audrey caught me, so I say, "Careful," she said. "Judgment before dessert is a red flag." "I'm being very open-minded." "You look like a man witnessing a felony." "It's cheese and ketchup?" Willa pointed a fry at me. "Don't yuck my yum, 4 stars." I lifted both hands, respectfully withdrawn. Audrey laughed, and under the table her foot touched mine. Not by accident. It became our rhythm after that. Not perfect, not simple, but ours. Derek did ask for a formal discussion, and Audrey did not meet him alone. She sent one calm email, then another, then finally suggested a co-parenting mediator when he kept trying to turn every message into a trial. I stayed out of the middle because Audrey asked me to. That was harder than I expected. I wanted to fix things. Men like me love fixing things. Give me a cracked beam, a load calculation, a foundation problem, and I could make sense of it. But Audrey didn't need me to rescue her. She needed me to respect the woman she was becoming. So I did. I sat beside her on the couch one evening while she drafted a message to Derek that said, "Willa's safety and stability matter to both of us. My personal life is not up for debate." She read it aloud, then looked at me nervously. Too sharp? I shook my head. Clear. Too cold? Clear. Too many periods? Audrey. What? You're allowed to end sentences. She stared at the laptop, then laughed so softly it nearly broke my heart. I forgot that for a while. I took her hand. I know. She leaned her head against my shoulder and we sat like that in the quiet glow of her living room, while Willis slept down the hall under a blanket covered in planets. That was the night I knew. Not when I kissed her in the park, not when she smiled at me through the restaurant window, not even when she texted that she might have kissed me. It was that night, with her hair brushing my jaw and her fingers laced through mine, when I realized love didn't always arrive like lightning. Sometimes it arrived like peace. 3 months after our first date, Willa upgraded me to 7 stars, pending review. 6 months after, Audrey gave me a drawer in her kitchen for my coffee. It's not a big deal, she said, standing barefoot by the counter in pajama pants and one of my old sweatshirts. I looked into the drawer. It contained my favorite dark roast, a travel mug, and the cinnamon tea I pretended not to like but always drank when she made it. It feels like a big deal. Audrey folded her arms. It's a drawer, Graham. It's a very intimate drawer. You're ridiculous. You gave me storage. I can take it back. I stepped closer. You could. She lifted her chin. But? But I'd miss it. Her expression softened. Then she hooked one finger through my belt loop and pulled me toward her. That kiss tasted like coffee and morning and the kind of happiness I had once believed belonged to other people. Her hands slid up my chest and mine settled at her waist, and for a minute the world narrowed to the warm kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator, and Audrey smiling against my mouth. From the hallway, Willa shouted, I can hear romance! Audrey dropped her forehead against my chest. She cannot. I have excellent ears, Willa yelled. I kissed the top of Audrey's head. 7 stars, pending review. She likes you. She has a strange way of showing it. So do I, Audrey said, looking up at me. No, you're pretty clear. Her smile trembled a little. Am I? I cupped her cheek. Audrey. She searched my face like she was still surprised to find me there. I love you, she whispered. The words were small, but they changed the room. I forgot how to breathe. Then I kissed her once, gently, because I wanted her to feel my answer before I said it. I love you too. Her eyes closed. Behind us, Willa appeared in the hallway holding a stuffed dragon. Does this mean Graham is staying for pancakes? Audrey laughed through tears. I looked at Willa. That depends. Are they ketchup pancakes? She gasped. I'm not a monster. By the following spring, my apartment lease ended and I moved into the little blue house with the crooked mailbox and the porch Audrey kept saying she wanted to repaint. We did repaint it. Eventually. Well, Audrey painted. I held the ladder and got blue paint in my hair because Willa said I needed visual interest. Derek became quieter after mediation. Not gone. Not transformed into some perfect co-parent overnight. But contained. Boundaries held. Emails replaced arguments. Willa stopped watching her mother's face every time the phone chimed. And Audrey changed too. Or maybe she simply returned to herself. She laughed louder, bought flowers for the kitchen for no reason, started leaving her phone in the other room during dinner. Sometimes I'd catch her watching me help Willa with math homework, and there would be this look on her face I still didn't know how to deserve. 1 year after that first night, I took Audrey back to Marcelli's. Just the two of us this time. No crayons, no kid menu, no ex-husband outside. She wore the same green dress, I wore the navy shirt. The waiter did not remember us, which Audrey found offensive. We were memorable, she insisted. You were memorable. She tilted her head. And you? I smiled. Not forgettable. After dinner, I walked her outside into the soft evening air. The city lights glowed against the wet pavement. It had rained earlier and everything smelled clean. Audrey slipped her hand into mine. Do you ever think about leaving? She asked quietly. I stopped. She looked embarrassed the moment she said it. I don't mean that the way it sounded. I know. I just... She looked toward the restaurant window where a couple sat at the same corner table where I had once waited alone. Sometimes I still can't believe you stayed that first night. I turned to face her. Audrey, I didn't stay because it was easy. Her eyes met mine. I stayed because you walked in holding your daughter's hand, scared and late and trying anyway, and I thought, there she is. A woman brave enough to show up messy instead of pretending. I wanted you then. Her lips parted. I want you now, I said, not the simple version, not the convenient version. You, Willa, the blue house, the battery drawer in transition, all of it. She laughed once, tearful and bright. Then she kissed me under the awning, exactly where she had stood that first night telling Derek no. This kiss wasn't cautious. It was sure. When we pulled apart, Audrey rested her forehead against mine. Across the street, a little girl's voice shouted, Mom, Graham, hurry up! We turned. Willa stood beside Beth, who had brought her to surprise us for dessert. Willa was waving both arms, curls flying, wearing a shirt that said, Official Romance Supervisor. Audrey squeezed my hand. Still want the chaos? She asked. I looked at the woman I loved, then at the child who had once rated me 4 stars, and then at the warm restaurant light spilling onto the sidewalk behind us. I'm counting on it. We walked toward Willa together, hand in hand, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel good on paper. I felt chosen in person. What would you have done if you thought your blind date stood you up, and then she walked in late holding her daughter's hand? Have you ever experienced anything even close to that kind of unexpected first date? Tell me your story in the comments. If you liked this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.